Well, welcome aboard to another episode of the Tree Service Marketing Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Smith. We got a very special guest today that has a tree service business for decades, and they're willing to share their story. So we're super excited to have them on. If you're watching this video later on a recorded version on YouTube or your podcast, please go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps our channel. And we've got expert interviews just like this coming up down the road, already scheduled, and more marketing content to help you grow your tree service business. So I want to welcome Jenn and Scott McPhee today with Harrison McPhee. Welcome aboard, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story. I'm really excited to hear about kind of how you guys got started and where you guys are with your business and kind of how you got there. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got in the tree service business, maybe to begin with, and kind of when you started and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, it's been a long ride. Probably been in the tree care business probably 40 years.
Okay.
Or 43 years. Right out of UMass, studied agriculture, urban forestry at UMass, and then got a nice job with Hartney Graymont back in the day. Worked with them for probably 30, close to 30 years, and then decided it was time to strike out on my own. So it was a little scary at, over the ripe age of 50 something to start over again. But we purchased a small company that was Harrison Associates and turned it into Harrison McPhee. So there was a nice base and a good client list to start with. And Jenn had the organizational skills, and I had some of the other skills. So that's when we started Harrison McPhee 8 years ago, coming up on our 9th year.
Right. So we've been in here for decades, but this actual business in itself is 8 years. And the company that we did purchase, the family-owned business from the retiring couple, they had their business for 15 years. So in terms of the word of mouth, the marketing, and the reputation that they built, they started that with about 15 years, and then we've evolved from there for the last 8 years. So
about 23 years in business, in this particular business, even though it's kind of been renamed a little bit, rebranded.
Right.
Got it. That's awesome. That's a testament to doing something right. And so before you purchased the business, were they kind of into the tree care, plant health care side of things too? Or is that something you guys introduced?
Well, they were primarily a landscape business, probably 60 to 70% landscape. And the rest was just general tree care, not a lot of plant health care. And my background had been, strong in tree care and plant health care. So over the last 8 years, we've pretty much flip-flopped that to close to 80% tree care and plant health care, and maybe 20% landscape work. So that was kind of our goal. There was a nice base there with a nice clientele in a nice area. And I saw the opportunity to have a lot higher level of tree care maintenance on those properties. So we've successfully flipped that around.
Great. That's awesome news. Yeah. And one of the really important things you said earlier was the ability to go out and start a business and strike out on your own. And that's a testament to, it doesn't matter what age you are out there, whatever age you may be, you got significant experience in a specific area or business niche or whatever, you can always go and start a business, right? Because I mean, if you really look at it and you really go hard and you do the right things, in not too many years down the road, you can significantly change like your path in life. And by starting that business and something that you already know very, very well, it's just something like you said, like it's probably a little bit scary at first, right? You got to get going, you got to get things ramped up, get the momentum building. But with you guys, it's a little bit more peculiar, a little bit more kind of specific to you, is that you purchased an existing business that was already kind of, established and things like that. Can you talk about maybe what that conversation started like? How did you get in there did they just put their business up for sale and you saw an opportunity, or how did that work?
Yeah, good question. Some people think there was a matchmaker out there that was one of my mentors but anyways, the company I was working for had been purchased, and I was helping with the transition there. and was thinking that maybe it was time for me to move on. And luckily, at the same time, Bob Harrison was getting ready for retirement, and he he was running his business out of the same town that we live in. And we happened to see each other at an Arbor Day celebration for one of his mentors. We sort of had co-mentors, the same person. So this gentleman, Henry Davis, sort of introduced us to each other. We had known each other, each been in the business probably respectively, 30 plus years, and he was in the business 40 plus years. So he kind of said, hey, you guys should talk. And then I ended up working with Bob for like 6 months, and he said, hey, I'm going to be selling the company, and would you be interested? So then we started talking, worked with his crew and worked for his clientele, and saw that it was a valid something that could be used as a base to grow on. So that's how that conversation started. And then, we bought the company after, maybe working for him for a year at the most.
So it's kind of an arrangement. Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so it was I mean, I was looking for a change, and he was looking for somebody that could take over. And he had cared for his properties and clients similar to the way that I had been taking care of my clients. So it seemed to be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And, then needed to have Jenn get involved. She could probably speak to that. She wasn't involved helping run the business in the beginning, and I was just taking on everything, not totally by myself, but probably 90% of the sales, the buying the equipment, the hiring people, the firing people, and working with all the different vendors and clients, and started to get a little overwhelming. And I think there was a point where Jenn looked at me and said, I don't know, it may not have been the exact words, but I can't stand by and watch this train wreck. I mean, in a good way. It was just like,
sure,
momentum was going, sales were growing,
right?
Coming in, was buying equipment, and Jenn said, "Okay, hold on." I think at the same time I realized I needed some better organizational skills, and that's where Jenn came in.
Well, remember, you're talking to a married couple here, so the conversation and the words that are used are actually at the time I was working in a trade association for the horticulture industry. So my whole background is in landscape, tree, and nursery trade associations, much like TCIA is. So I was part of the central office that ran those associations in the New England area. And we had a trade show called New England Grows, which is a big part of what we did. So I've been working in the industry for 30 years myself, and went through the process of getting this company set up through all the paperwork. And at the time, the company that we purchased didn't have any social media presence, or actually any marketing presence. They obviously had a name, no logo. There were no newsletters. There were no marketing pieces. At the time, they did have a firewood business that they did occasionally, and they would send a postcard once a year to remind people and put an ad in the local paper. But we were really starting from ground zero when it came to the marketing side of things, because they had a great word of mouth presence and a great reputation with their clientele. But the clientele was doing, like Scott said, flip-flopped, more of the landscape and non-repeatable services and less tree work, and no branding. So as I was coming into the picture, as we were purchasing this, I was focusing on creating that brand for this new company, as opposed to the day-to-day operations, other than setting it up. So what we needed when we started on January 1st of 2015, we needed to be up and ready to go, but also create a certain sense of safety with the clients that were there. Because really what we were purchasing were a number of trucks that were in the last stages of their life and a client list, right? So that was, we had goodwill, but change is hard. And when companies are purchased, oftentimes there's some nervousness on the client side. Is this going to be the same thing? Is the quality of the work the same? What are we going to get out of this? I've been talking to Bob for years. I don't know who this new person is. So a big part of the first 2 or 3 years was really establishing that relationship and the trust with the existing clientele. So that was part of the reason we kept the name Harrison in McPhee, so that there was some consistency there. You know, we could have come up with something more creative, I suppose, but that was a deliberate part of creating and establishing our brand and that trust. Because both Scott and Bob, like I said, they have the same lineage of mentorship. That the style and the quality of arboriculture that we perform comes from this long lineage of Charles Sargent Sprague, which just comes down and trickles down to this very specific and high quality level of pruning, so that their lineage was the same. So a big part of launching this whole thing was making sure that we were establishing that presence and trust and longevity in the mind of the current clients that we had. So I wasn't purchasing trucks in the beginning. Now I purchase a lot of trucks. That's my, that's my Valentine's gift, or my, here, look at this new truck. But then I gradually came out of the association side of things, left that job so I could be here full time, as opposed to kind of juggling both of them.
Wow, good stuff. So a couple of things to unpack there. That was really, really great stuff. So Scott, you had mentioned, you come in there and then things are kind of a train wreck, right? And so when you become a business owner and you're managing folks, managing people and hiring and firing, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different hats to wear. There's a lot of set of skills that you've got to kind of pick up and learn pretty quick, rather than being in the truck. So a lot of people watching, maybe they're still in the truck running a crew, or they're not actually to the point yet where they've got an office and people answering their phones and scheduling and doing all those things and managing 2 or 3 crews, 10 plus employees, 20 employees, whatever. But those are a whole separate set of skills that you have to kind of develop and learn quickly, especially when you step in and buy a company, because you don't want to just flip-flop everything right at the beginning. You want to keep some sort of like sanity, I guess, with the company as it's going right now, and not have too much flip-flop and turnover there. So that's one thing that you had mentioned there. So that's, you got in there and I guess you guys did pretty well getting it going like that, right? I mean,
yeah, I think our skill set worked well because Scott has the experience as the arborist and that knowledge and the communication with the clients. And that's so incredibly important. And, my background is more in the organization of things. So I think those things complement each other, and he needed to be out every day talking to those people. So I think we're not an unusual situation, a little bit of a tangent, but right now where we are in society, we're trying to create more equity, bring more women, more diversity into this industry, because it hasn't been very diverse in the past. So it's not unusual to see an arborist who's a male who was an arborist and then decided to start a company, and then the wife or significant other or friend, comes in to help with the office side of things. So this pattern of arborist out in the field, partner in the office helping is not unusual, but a big part of what we're trying to get out there is pride in this trade, pride in what people do, and also elevating the confidence and status of women that are in this industry as well, because every job in this running a successful tree business is important. So, the women that are coming into this, they may not be technically arborists, some of them, they may not have the experience climbing the trees, but their skill set to make this company work well is huge. So that's a big part of our mission, is to really underscore the confidence, help support programs that will give women more training in the business side of things, as well as the production arborists who are female.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the organizational skills that women bring to the table are just, head and shoulders above what us men can usually come up with, right? So that in itself is the only way to go.
You said that. I was going to say the same thing. That it was a lot. It's like having a very good safety net. Like I used to have to do a lot of that organization myself. It would be sort of a second thought, like sell the work, meet with the clients, keep the crews busy, keep the equipment running, get out and do stuff. Like I was back in the field, gypsy moth had become an issue. So I was out every day doing applications to the trees, and I was, selling jobs, and I'd be billing the jobs. And I knew Jenn had that skill set. So when she joined full time, it made it a lot easier for me when she started to get systems in place and standard operating procedures and organization that like, oh, okay, now I can just go do what I'm good at, meeting with clients, training the crews, networking and those things, knowing that I didn't have to do a lot of the other things. So Jenn brought that skill set. We promoted one of our field arborists to an operations manager, which helped us out tremendously, Steve Vernon. So that's a big part of it, realizing that you got to surround yourself with good people and hire people that have a better skill set in certain areas than you have, because you can't do it all yourself, or you don't last very long, or you're burning the candle at both ends, and then when you come to the finish line, you're all done.
But that's right. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, so
yeah,
doing the work and getting out there in the field and managing all of that process, bringing in the invoices, getting people, all that stuff is separate from the organization of the business too, and growing it. And one of the things, Jenn, that you had mentioned too a minute ago about the branding and the marketing, is that the former company really didn't have much of that going whatsoever, right? Like they probably had a good name, and like you said, Scott, like everybody loved their services, they valued their services, people trusted their services. But if you don't have that brand in place, coupled with a good marketing strategy, it really can only go so far as a word of mouth company. And so with you guys coming in and kind of implementing that strategy with branding, marketing, getting the word out there, making sure the current clients don't turn over because it's now a new name, all of that stuff without sacrificing, the quality of the service, the value of the business and all that stuff, that's a big thing. And I think people in their businesses would go a lot farther faster, grow a lot farther faster in general if they have that branding kind of in play as well as the marketing. It's not just about getting leads, but it's about tattooing that brand in people's brains and people remembering your company name and all of that. That's very, very beneficial for the long run. So I think now your trajectory is probably set to grow a lot more so than it was in the past with the former business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that we had to actually work harder to maintain those clients, because whereas the former owner could just show up there, probably wouldn't even have to give a proposal, would just show up and do work. Whereas when I showed up, there was some, people wanted to get to know me a little bit, sort of like the date a little while before we got married and started that relationship again. So there was a little bit of show
me what you got.
Yeah, show me what we had to have a few interactions together.
Sure.
So I felt like we had to actually outperform what the previous owner had done. And I thought, Jenn said, well, we need to get our trucks looking better. We need to get a new fleet. We need to have everybody in a good uniform. We need the sales team, meaning myself, and it was one other person at the time. Like, you guys need to look well put together. We need to have our proposals all either electronic, and they need to be neat and clean. So there was all that's branding. And then, so when we do show up on a property, the clients notice that the trucks are all detailed. They look great. The colors are the same sort of complementary colors in the uniforms. Sales arborist shows up. He's got some gray and burnt orange on his uniform somewhere with a nice logo. And, we're meeting a lot of our clientele are, probably high income, upper 1%, or the 1% of the 1%ers. So, if I show up in, maybe a higher end brand jacket, or I know that sounds kind of corny, but people notice that, and they just they see how well that, the sales arborist presents himself, and then how the crew delivers sort of that same level of detail. I think when people see that, that everything sort of matches, they get that idea, like, wow, these folks have it put together. They're organized. The uniforms look great. So, before they even try our work, they're like, okay, there's already a brand there that, whoever's running this organization has put a lot of thought and high level execution into it.
Yeah, and that speaks well to your client base for those upper echelon folks. They're looking to get the tree care, the plant health care, the repeat services. They just want their property to look good, and they want everything taken care of. So yeah, the branding goes a long way. The kind of delivering of the message of your brand, and what your website says, what your emails say, what every little touch point, all of that. If it's higher end, and that's really good. It just keeps that brand kind of out in front, in the forefront in people's minds. Another thing, another guest told me about one time. He was in the Nashville, Tennessee market. One way he found the upper end clients in his local market, speaking of some of the networking opportunities that you can do, he was a member of the local, I forgot what it was called, but it's some sort of like orchestra association or local. It's where all the top like high net worth individuals were a member of this place, because there's all these like local shows in town for like the orchestra, like the different high end type things. So he was a member of that. Yeah, whatever it's called in your local area. He said, I was a member of that. And pretty much my name got passed around in there. There's hundreds and hundreds of members. And so that's how he got a good, client base of the upper echelon people for the plant healthcare side of things. I thought that was pretty custom. That was pretty, peculiar that he kind of saw that opportunity and did that. So maybe something that you could join too. Yeah. Well, good. So what today, like, if you guys had to guess, or you probably keep tabs of it, but let's say in your marketing initiatives now, what do you think are some of the biggest drivers of, new client acquisition and bringing in more customers today? What's working the best for you, do you think?
Well, I do think that word of mouth continues to be our best source of marketing, because if our brand stays consistent and you follow through with everything that you're doing and talking about, you have a good experience with a client, that client talks to the next client, that good experience continues to go. So I do think that continues to be the best source of just doing very good work, being put together, following through with what you say, having the, highest level quality of service. That in itself is going to advertise you better than anything else. We do find that experiential marketing is really the thing that we tap into the most. My background in events, running events and event production, it comes in very handy, because I think that you can put an ad in a paper. We do social marketing. We do all of those other things. But if you can be at an event and be part of the event, be there giving something away, just as the example that you gave of being part of an association, supporting a cause that has similar goals that you do, that may be giving back, working on tree equity or food scarcity, and you're a sponsor of that event, and you're at that silent auction with people, and you're sponsoring a tree giveaway or a tree planting. Not only does that give you the opportunity to talk one-on-one with a person that wins it, or wins the auction item or what have you, but you're at those events. These become your friends. This becomes your social network. So the conversations that you then have with people, with your clients, you're having the same kind of conversations. Our social network is not in every case, but our social network is the same social network that they are. We're going to the same symphonies, we're going to the same events. So I think that experiential marketing beyond or to support, so that people can actually have that opportunity to talk to you, ask you questions, develop some street cred, hear the way you respond to things, ask you questions. It's amazing wherever we are, people want to talk about trees. It's kind of like, is there a doctor in the room? Is it, if there's a tree guy in the room, there's always oh my gosh, I have this tree. And if you love talking about those things, what is a bigger advertiser for what you love to do if you show that enthusiasm about your craft and you know what you're talking about? So, being in those circles, I think, is probably the number one thing that gets us business, although that's sometimes hard to measure. It has been our
oftentimes I'll go on an appointment, and I'll ask the prospect, like, how did you hear about us? Why am I here? And the ones that seem to be very productive, they'll say, oh, I saw it on your website or social media, or there was a post that you folks were, in downtown Boston, in sort of this downtrodden area, trying to, elevate the happiness in that area, or the aesthetics by doing a tree planting, working with the local youth, or other volunteers. And then there's a group that's trying to plant a lot of trees in the city that we've partnered with. And they say, I want to work with a company that does those type of things. Mm-hmm. And if we talk about environmental issues and, the sustainability in the way that we run our business and the products that we choose and the soil care that we do, they're like, oh, I want to work with a company that's, thinking of the big picture and thinking about helping people socially, and not only just taking care of all of the, your wealthy clients, but we're also volunteering to do things in underserved or underprivileged areas, and also trying to take care of the environment. So you think about the social issues that some of our clients, they want to do the same thing, but they don't always have the vehicle to do that. They're like, mm-hmm. Whoa, I can work with these people and maybe I can help, donate some time or some money and do those things. So when you start talking to people about those things, or they see those, gives us a common thing to talk about. And it's already like, oh, you're not really in the business just to cut my tree and take my money. You're in the do other socially responsible things and environmentally responsible things. So it's a little bit, that's the type of people that we want to work with. We work with all types of folks. So I think another part of our marketing is a lot of the networking that mm-hmm. we'll do at, professional events, talking to associated businesses that are in landscape or mm-hmm. high-end builders or landscape architects. Sometimes we'll go and make presentations to those folks on, hey, here's some new things we're working on. Here's how we can help you. So those are invaluable as far as, if you have a landscape maintenance company, it's sort of like having a whole nother sales team, because once they trust you and you can help make their property look nice and you make them, make them look like the hero, then they just turn over all of their, whether it's, the higher big tree pruning or the plant healthcare. So that's sort of, that ball is continually rolling on, a big core of the client acquisition. But then there's that other sort of one-on-one that the client's looking for, a little higher cause or a different company that does things differently.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
Simon Sinek, that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And, we happen to care for trees, but the reason we do that is to create environments that people can enjoy. And the reason and the why behind that is to, elevate the happiness by making mindful connections with nature. And and the tree work is just how we happen to do it. But there's other people out there, whether it's the soil care people or the landscape architects or, any of these other groups that we talk about, and they're planet passionate too. The why behind making people happy, keeping them healthy on this planet. There's so many connections between the value of the soil and the trees that have a direct effect on our health, right? So if people are not interested in the trees specifically, if you talk about the health of the food that their grandchildren are eating, then you might hit a soft spot there to say all of this, the air quality, the mental health, the quality of the food you're eating, it all ties down to our urban forests and our soils and the conversations we're having with even people in agriculture. So it's playing the long game and looking at the big picture more than which limb would you like taken off, ma'am?
I think those are some great nuggets. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's amazing, because that's really what I suggest a lot of times with clients that are in the plant healthcare niche, because there is a little bit less search volume for that specific type of service, but people want it. They just maybe don't perhaps know that they can get it or know where to go find it or whatever. So being in those circles, networking, that gets you in front of a larger audience of people and the right types of people that are kind of looking at the same, the community and the earth the same way you are. And I think as we move forward, just in society and as in mankind and humankind to begin with, like urbanization is creating the urban sprawl gets bigger and bigger. People are going to be needing to look at, planting more trees, becoming more conscious about all that stuff. So I think just being a part of that now at this point is great. And that helps you kind of get in front of more people as you do those types of things, those different types of networking events and things like that. That's that's really who you're after, is those types of people that share the same vision. And those are going to also be your clients. One cool thing you guys could do, I don't know if you do this already, one thought that just popped in my head is you could have like a newsletter invite on your website that says, hey, for the any types of things that you could get people, because one of the bigger things about growing your company too, one of a good tool is to build up your email database, your database of clients. And we'll maybe talk about that in just a second if you're using any of those tools that you're putting all your clients in a database. But you could have a free download, like the top ways you can plant trees, or the top reasons to plant trees in the local community, your local area, just like a free download or something like that, or the top 5 plant healthcare or tree care diseases or fertilizing initiatives that we see in the local area. And then they could download that. Right now they're in your email list too, without even being a customer or getting an estimate to begin with. They just enroll. So those are some thoughts I had on that. But amazing shares. Thanks so much for sharing that stuff. That's very powerful. So anybody listening, joining those local associations, networking events, places like that, is going to get you in front of a large audience. Plus, they probably mention you on their website promoting the event. It sits there forever on the event. So when somebody searches your business name, they probably find the link in the article to that event that happened with your information on it. So it's kind of this like lasting effect that each one of those events creates too.
Yeah.
That's great. That's perfect. So are you guys using some sort of tool or database where you put your clients in there, it follows up with them, sends the estimates, sends the invoices?
Yeah, we use Arbor Gold.
Perfect.
So people in the industry are aware of that. And we have used that one since we started.
That's great. Because we have a lot of clients. Most of them do use one. They're a size company that's trying to grow. Because in my opinion, it's like, I don't know how you keep up with everything if you don't have some sort of database. How do you grow it intelligently and look at, your client base and how many you have and all of that stuff. And plus it just makes you smarter when they call in. Hey, last time it looks like John Jones, we did this, this, and this for you. Hey, we can, so it just makes everything more organized. And then another thing you can do with it is download your list and send out email newsletters, or educate them on the event that you're about to be at. Hey, if you're going to be at such and such event next Tuesday, the 22nd, we're going to be there sharing how to plant trees. One of our customers about a year or two ago, they had as their initiative, every tree that we remove, we will plant a new tree in its place, not in the same place, but we'll plant a new tree for free in the city, some choosing. So just little things like that, people probably like to see. Those are good little taglines and things.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, great shares, guys. What other, I want to be, respectful of you guys' time too. What other things maybe would you share with a business owner that's getting started or kind of getting going, or maybe just hoping that they can grow their business and stick with it and just kind of keep going? Is there any words of wisdom maybe you would share with those types of people?
I would say don't be afraid to try new things. I think I've been in the business a long time, and I had to stop saying to myself, well, that's the way we always did it. And some of those ideas are kind of archaic, and I think it stifles the creative juices of other people. I think you need to be the voice of reason or experience, but you have to just be open and let other people bring ideas in. And because the world's changing so rapidly and the technology's changing. So I would say don't be afraid to try new things and allow people to experience their own growth and have successes in your business to help you out. Otherwise, nobody's going to want to stay around and help you. And I think probably one of the biggest things that I would say is, and I know it probably sounds corny, but if you have a dream of, like Jenn said, we're more of an environmental company who just happen to do tree work. That's sort of our venue. But, I would just say just to dream big and just put a stake in the ground out there and just be organized and deliberate in your steps, how you're going to get there. Have somebody help you that is very organized and has a plan for the branding and the marketing and the, all the HR stuff. So that's,
I would say start every meeting with bright spots. If you're an entrepreneur and you're out there, you probably have the tendency to, always be working on something, fix it, and then move on to the next thing that needs to be fixed, particularly if you're overwhelmed. it's a simple practice and shouldn't be too woo-woo, but every meeting I think should start with let's just go around and mention one good thing that's happened. Let's mention a bright spot. It changes the energy because we tend to be focusing on what we need to fix. So, and then we quickly forget the progress that we made. And I think thinking about the long game, there's no silver bullet, there's no quick fix for anything. So if you recognize that every step you take is a step in the right direction, and it works toward the progress and the building the foundation of your business, you are working in the right direction. And this business, particularly, even if it's just the weather, throws curveballs at us all the time. So by nature of this business, we're constantly given challenges that throw us off the rails sometimes. You had a plan for the day, the plan didn't go the way it was. So I think starting with that bright spot and just realizing that every step you take is building that foundation so that when you look back, you'll see that if you kept your eyes on that vision, that you're constantly moving in the right direction.
That's awesome.
Got one more quick thing.
Sure. Yes.
Lots of advice.
Don't be afraid to get help from outside experts.
Yeah.
One of the first things we did is we had a mutual friend that was a consultant, and we've hired him as a business coach. So he helps us both personally and business wise. So kind of helps keep you grounded, keeps you on track. Sometimes it can be lonely being a business owner or co-owners. And sometimes you need to sort of have somebody with an outside perspective to just either point out what you're doing great or to hold you accountable when you need to get some things accomplished. I think in the very beginning, because since I had worked for a company for a long time and helped develop it into a good sized company, I knew where I needed to get, but I was basically starting at ground zero. And he just said, take a deep breath. Eventually you'll get there. Sales will drive everything in the beginning. So you need to get some work. So when the work starts coming in and you start developing some clientele, we'll work on those other systems that you need to have in place. So I would say get outside help, have patience, recognize and celebrate the victories, and don't beat yourself up too badly. You'll stumble and fall, but the victories will outweigh the defeats.
Powerful stuff. Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, mentor is paramount, I think, in business success, because if you want that shortcut, right, you don't want to kind of figure it out for yourself as you go. There's other people that have been down the same road that you want to go down. So that's a very good suggestion and recommendation is get a mentor, get a coach that can help you kind of plug the gaps, answer the questions as they pop up. I mean, I've got a coach in my business as well, and it just helps tremendously knowing that person's been down that road. They can tell you to relax. Hey, this is how we're going to get to the next step. And you don't have to figure it out for yourself, because being an entrepreneur is like being out on an island by yourself anyway, right? So you got a lot of decisions to make, a lot of things to do, a lot of hats to wear already. So having somebody in your corner, I think, is very powerful, and it helps you get through those times that you need somebody there for. So again, I want to thank you guys so much for your time. Jenn and Scott McPhee with Harrison McPhee. Appreciate you guys being on today and sharing your story. If you guys are listening to this after the fact, go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find our podcast on all the major players, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and all of the other major podcast hosts. Until next time, we'll see you on the next video. You guys have a great day.